And now joining us this morning to discuss the end of the blockade on the Ukrainian-Polish border, as well as the meeting of agricultural ministers that took place in Luxembourg on Monday, is Denis Kolesnyk, political consultant and analyst. Good morning and welcome to TVP World.
Good morning.
So now, can you tell us which provisions of the Green Deal were discussed on Monday in Luxembourg, and were they those that had angered farmers so much all across Europe, but also in Poland?
You know, first of all, it is important to say that there were a lot of grievances about the Green Deal, and we've seen it not only in Poland and Eastern Europe, but we've seen it also in France. For example, we all remember when President Macron visited the agricultural meeting in Paris at the Porte de Versailles. There were mass protests of the farmers. So, I mean, this issue is quite an important issue for different farmers throughout Europe. But at the same time, it is quite difficult for me to comment on this meeting because I simply didn't follow it this morning.
Right, and now taking a closer look at the negotiations between Ukraine and Poland. So how did these negotiations unfold? Were there any major sticking points during the talks?
Yeah, you know, this chapter of bilateral relations was quite difficult and maybe even shameful. But there were grievances not only from the Ukrainian side, but also from the Polish side. We all remember how it all started. Ukrainians were attacked by the Russian Federation in Poland, and I have to remind that Poland was the first country that responded by helping Ukraine, and the help provided by Polish state was one of the most important. And if it wasn't for the Polish position, we don't even know what the situation in Ukraine could have been right now. So there were different grievances from the Polish side. First of all, it was due to the Ukrainian agriculture being sold on the Polish soil. And normally the proposition of the European Union and the deal was to provide Ukraine the possibility to export to third countries their grain. And we know that the key markets of for the Ukrainian grain are in Asia and Africa. At the same time, there was also another situation in other grievances. Another grievance from Poles is that the Ukrainian lorry drivers received the possibility to travel to the European Union without additional licenses. And so it created certain competition. But at the same time, we should remember that when Poland was moving towards the European Union more than a decade ago, not everybody was happy here, for example, in Paris or in Germany, about Poles receiving Polish products coming to the European markets and Poles receiving let's put it this way, better conditions for their work.
All right, so I know you mentioned this a little bit, but what role did negotiations between both sides play in ending this blockade, and what do you think now comes next?
Right. In my opinion, the initial strategy that Ukrainians undertook was maybe not the best one, because they decided. Actually, the problem arrived just before the Polish elections, and the Ukrainians decided to move to Brussels and to actually put pressure through Brussels on Poland. This strategy didn't work. Then they started to negotiate bilaterally, but it didn't work either. So this we see that after the Polish elections, and we see that a lot of different rounds of negotiations, different compromises undertaken by the European Union, Ukrainians, Poles, some kind of peace was achieved among, speaking of this situation. But at the same time, what it gives, we all hope, because Poland is one of the key countries in the European Union and the key country in Eastern Europe, and the good relations between Poland and Ukraine are quite important. And let's put it this way, we can only hope that the end of this blockade would actually close the page of this, of this bad chapter in the bilateral ties, and that would improve the relations bilaterally.
And like you mentioned, these negotiations were not easy, but the main outcome, I believe, that is that both sides have reached an agreement. And also, like you said, in fact, Poland has been so supportive of Ukraine, not only since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, but also before, also with its candidacy to join the EU as such. So this alliance and this friendship is very important for both sides. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on TVP World.
Thank you.